Hey, alright, if you watch TikTok or Instagram Reels, then you probably have seen these type of accounts where two famous characters from cartoons or TV shows talk with each other about a certain topic. And this can be about trending news, fun facts, jokes, and so on. And as you can see, they're bringing a lot of views. So for anyone that wants to monetize a channel, then this can be a great niche for content. But the thing here is that I've seen a couple of them and I realized that they can be easily automated. And that's exactly what we're gonna cover in this video. So here in N8N, I created an AI automation that does just that. And right now I'm just gonna click on execute workflow so you can see how it goes and what it outputs. And in the meantime, since it does take a couple of minutes to run, I'm gonna explain how it works. So first, it just triggers from a Google Sheet where it has all of your information. In this case, this is the one that we have. And here's where you put in the idea, the information of the characters, where you can see the status. For example, right now it's generating the video. And here's where you will see the actual link. And once we trigger from that sheet, we then just pick a random gaming background video from another sheet that we have where we put in all of the video URLs. So that would be the first step of this automation. And after that, we then just further research whatever topic the user selected. And we create the script for it for the two characters. And once we have the scripts, we then just give it a voice using 11 Labs. And we overlay the character image with its voice in a video. And after we do that for both of the characters, then we just order the clips into conversation style. So the first clip will be the first character talking, the second clip will be the second character talking, and the third clip will be the first character again, and so on. So that would be a step 2 where we have all of the green screen videos with audio and characters ready. But then the third step is where we actually get a random song from a sheet. So that's that. And for the fourth step, we actually merge everything together. So we merge the background video with the green screen characters and the song. And from that, we'll basically have the first version of our video. From here, it's almost ready, but then we just have to add image overlays to improve the narration and to also add those fancy captions. So for that, here is the image overlay logic, and here is the node that adds the captions. So once we have all of that, then we have the final video ready to go. So we just send it back to the Google Sheet. So right now it just changed to video generated, and as you can see, here is the generated video. And now I'm just gonna play the video so you can see it. And by the way, this one is talking about the Jeff Bezos wedding. So let's see how it went.
Hey Cartman, did you hear about Jeff Bezos having his wedding in Venice, Italy? It's supposed to be next summer.
Dude, $10 million for one wedding? That's like 2 weeks of Amazon Prime subscriptions.
Well, apparently he's spending about $10 million on the whole thing. That's like 1 billion Krabby Patties.
I bet Jeff's wedding cake is taller than my house. Maybe it comes with free shipping.
And the guest list is wild. Oprah, Katy Perry, Kim Kardashian, basically everyone who's ever been on a magazine cover.
And honestly, if Oprah shows up, I hope she gives out free yachts instead of cars. You get a boat. You get a boat.
But some Venetians aren't too happy. They're worried about all the celebs and tourists crowding their city like jellyfish season at Goo Lagoon.
The Venetians should charge a Bezos tax for every selfie Kim Kardashian takes on a gondola.
At least Bezos and Lauren are using 80% local vendors. Maybe that'll get them some brownie points with the locals. If not, maybe just a slice of tiramisu.
Anyway, if you want more juicy wedding drama and sarcasm, like and follow Ricardo Taipi for more.
So that was it, and as you can see, it's a very high quality result. You can see that the captions are on point, the character animations are smooth, the image overlays are accurate, the AI voice is very realistic, the scripting is absolutely amazing, appropriate for each character personality. And remember that all of this was just created from an idea and a character name, image, and voice ID. So yeah, that was a really fun build, and now let's actually walk through how I made everything from start to finish. But before that, I also quickly want to remind you that this exact template will be available in our new Skool community. So for example, you just be able to download it and import it directly to your N8N. Here you'll also get access to all of the AI agents and automations that I build on this channel, as well as some intro guidance if you're starting AI automation and agents from scratch. And of course, you'll have a more direct access to myself and the community if you want to ask any questions about your N8N roadblocks, AI, and so on. So if you're really interested in this space, then right now we have a limited offer until 100 members. So feel free to check it out in the description. But anyways, now let's actually review everything. So first off, you need to have some connected accounts. I'll explain in what parts you'll use each of these when we review the whole automation, but essentially, you just need your Google Sheets account connected, your OpenAI API key, 11 Labs API key, Perplexity API key, Faceless API key, and you need to have the Nocode Architects Toolkit installed. And if you don't know what this is, well, it's basically an API you can use to do a bunch of things, including to edit videos. And I know that other video manipulation APIs like Bannerbear or Creatomate exist, but as you can see, their pricing is a bit on the high end. So the difference here with the NCA Toolkit is that you can actually host it yourself. And one of the places you can host it is in a Google Cloud project. And this essentially means that the cost will be extremely low. And I'm talking about a couple of cents or a few dollars if you give it a hard use. So yes, we're gonna use this to do all of the video editing parts, like to add the images, to add the captions, to merge the clips, to overlay the audio, and so on. So right now, just go ahead and install the NCA Toolkit in your Google Cloud project by following this tutorial right here. And of course, this is from the creator itself, who is Stephen G. Pope. So huge shout out to him, and go ahead and watch his videos. He did a great job at providing this amazing tool for us. Okay, and after you have connected all of these accounts, then you need to create some assets. So first we'll create some Google Drive folders in which we'll save all of the character images and songs. So in my case, I have this one right here in which I have the characters folder. And here I just have an image of my characters, which is SpongeBob and Cartman. So when creating these images, just make sure that you use this color right here to make the resolution 2000 by 2000 and position your character in the middle a bit lower to the ground, and that should be it. And next to that, you can also see that we have a green image, and this will just be to help us with the background. So again, we're using the same green color, and in this case a 1080 by 1920 resolutions for platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels. So yeah, that will be the characters folder. And after that, we have two folders just for the character voices. Here is where all of the audios generated by 11 Labs will be stored. So just prepare these two to save them there. And then at the end, we have a background music folder in which you'll just save all of the songs that you want to use. So once you have all of these folders right here, then that would be the first check. And after that, you just need the video ideas Google Sheet, which is this one that we just saw. I'll be leaving the template for this sheet for you to just download. But essentially for the character properties, you would just need to fill in its name, then its actual image by following this structure right here. So this part of the link first, and after the equal sign, you actually have to put the ID of your image. And the way you can get the ID is just by right clicking, then sharing and copying link, and just copy that link into your browser. And this number you see right here will be the actual ID. So just copy that and paste it into this part right here. Then after that, you just have to put in the voice ID of that character. In this case, I created mine from 11 Labs. So once you have it created, you just go to the three dots and copy the voice ID and just paste it into your sheet. So now just go ahead and do that for character 1 and for character 2. And that would be it for our first Google Sheet. Okay, and after that is to actually have a Google Cloud bucket. So you will actually have this after you install the NCA Toolkit in your Google Cloud project. So if you haven't done that yet, then you should follow the tutorial that I linked in the description. But once you're here, you will go to your bucket, which is like a Google Drive folder, and here you'll just upload all of your gaming background videos. As you can see here, I have my GTA background and my Minecraft background, and the reason they're here instead of a simple Google Drive folder is because of the size. So once you have uploaded all of the videos you want, you can just copy the public URL and paste it into your sheet right here. So this one is really simple. You just put a title and then all of your links, and that will be everything for your Google Cloud bucket. So now the final asset you need to create is the same sheet but for your background songs. So it'll look something like this, and again the URL structure will be this part first and then your actual ID. And remember, the way you can get your ID is by right clicking on your file, clicking on share, copy link, pasting that link in your browser, and then just copying this number, this number right here. So yes, that's it. And now that you have your Google Drive folder, your 3 Google Sheets, and your videos in the Google Cloud bucket, then you have everything ready to go. So let's start. The first node you will use is a Google Sheets trigger node. And this will just check whenever the status column, which is this one, is changed. But the way this whole automation starts is when it actually goes to start generation. So to check if we actually changed it to start generation, then we need another node, which is the if node right here. As you can see, we're just mapping the status here and we're checking if this is equal to a start generation. So if it is, then it'll go to this true branch, and if it's not, then nothing will happen. But in this demo run that we did, it was in the start generation, so now we actually update the status. In this case, we would just change it from a start generation to generating video. And now that means that all of the magic will start to happen. So the next node is where we set all of the initial data. And here we just map in the name, the image URL, and the voice ID for both of the characters. And we also map in the topic as well as the vertical green screen image that I talked about that was in the Google Drive folder, and the user of the social media account you'll use, because this would be for the watermark overlay. So now once we have this node, then we'll just get all of that data neatly ordered. So next off, now we actually start generating the video. So if you remember from that guide, the first thing we need to do is to pick the gaming background. So with this node, we're just getting the rows from that sheet where we had all of our gaming background videos, and it'll just output all of those rows. So once we have that, then we just use the code node to pick a random one from the list. In this case, it's this code right here, and it picked row number 2 as the selected video. And yes, I'll be leaving this exact code in the description for you to just copy and paste. And if you're asking why I used some code in this Nocode channel, well, in cases like simple data formatting or manipulation, I highly recommend you to start using some code, especially when we have tools like ChatGPT at hand, because it'll just speed up your workflow and also make it smaller and easier to debug. But anyways, now that you have the selected video, then we just save it into this set node to store it in the meantime. And that's it. That would be step number 1. So let's go ahead and check step number 2, where we will have the images with the animation of sliding in, sliding out, and with the AI voices and green background. So for that, of course, we first need to generate the script. So back here to do that, we first do some further research on the topic, and we're using the Perplexity API. And the request is simple. I just told it that it'll receive a topic and that it'll do some research on it from sources with the past 7 days, and to output that in a short paragraph. And then of course, I just put in the topic right here. And if we check in the results, you can see that in this case, in which the idea was the Jeff Bezos wedding, this is what it output. And this step is really crucial because unless you want some generic info on whatever topic you want to talk about, then Perplexity is the real deal here for you to have the most recent information. So once we have all of that, then we just go ahead and create the script using OpenAI. In this case, I'm using the GPT 4.1 model, and the prompt goes like this. I just tell it that it's a script writer, that the script will be like a conversation between these two characters, and I just map them in right here. And I also give it a little bit of context that there's a viral trend about 2 fictional characters talking with each other about a certain topic. And then I just give it the topic and the further research from Perplexity. And then I tell it to be informative, but also to have a touch of sarcastic humor. And this obviously will depend on whatever character you will use. In my case, SpongeBob and Cartman are a little bit on the funny side, so that's why I chose this property. And then I tell it with which character to start and with character to end the convo. And then here comes the important bit. You will tell it to output the script in a JSON array format, and that each character will only have 5 dialogues. So in total, there will be 10 dialogues. And this is around the 1 minute mark. So again, this will depend on you if you want a short video or a longer video. But for the last instruction, I just tell it to do a little call to action, like for example, like and follow username for more. Then what you gotta do is you also have to add the JSON array example. And this is also super important because outputting the result as a JSON array in this format will actually make each of the N8N scripts come out in a real N8N item. Because if we check the output, you can see that the result is not a big blob of text. It's actually neatly separated by character 1 and character 2. So in this case, the conversation goes this first, then this one, then this one, and so on. So make sure that your output comes out like this, and to enable output content as JSON. But moving on, once you have the scripts, then we actually split them. So all of the ones from character 1 will get split into 5 items. So in total, you'll have 5 items, each containing a script of each of the characters. And the reason we split them is because here we'll actually generate a different voice for each one. So the top one is for character 1 and the bottom one is for character 2. So in this case, it doesn't matter which one we review, so let's just go with the top one. So first here for this set node is where we just order some data. So we just map in the character 1 voice ID and the character 1 script. And since this one has 5 items, then the output will also have 5 items, each one with the voice ID and with the script. And the reason we're putting the data like this is for it to go to the loop node right here. Because the only data this loop over items node will actually read is the one that comes up directly behind it. And since here we're gonna generate the voice, then we directly need the voice ID and the script. So that's why we set them up right here. But yes, here we're just using the loop to create the audio for each script one at a time, because if we do all of them at the same time, then it can sometimes crash, and sometimes also 11 Labs doesn't accept that. So it's always good practice to loop all of the items one by one. And with that said, the first step in the loop is to generate the voice. So here we're just using the 11 Labs community node with the text-to-speech operation, and here we map in the voice ID and also the text. And as you can see, for the input data, we get the voice ID and the character 1 script. So we just map that in right here, and for each run that the loop does, it'll change the script. So for example, this is the first loop run and it gave this script. Then for the second, it'll be this second one. Then for the third one, it'll be this one, and so on. So that's how you make sure that it successfully creates the audio for each script. And in the bottom here, we also have additional options. And this is just to select your model. In this case, I'm using one of the best ones, which is 11 Multilingual V2. And I'm also using this Opus format instead of the normal MP3. And then for the voice settings, I just set up these values. In your case, you will need to test out which one works the best for you. And you can also test this out in the actual 11 Labs studio. But finally, once this node runs, you'll get the actual audio in a binary format. And this is good, but in our case, we actually need it in a URL format. So after that, we just upload that audio file into our Google Drive folder. And exactly in that folder that I mentioned previously where all of the audios were saved. So once we have all of those files in the drive, we would actually get the ID for each one. And now that we have run this whole loop again and again for all of the 5 items, we just set all of the new audio URLs in this set node. So if you remember well, to actually get the download URL for each file, you will need to follow this format. It was this part first and then your actual ID. And since we got the ID from uploading it to the Google Drive, then we can just map it right here. And here also make sure that you don't map directly from the actual drive node, but from the loop node, because it aggregates all of the results here and it'll get it for all of the 5 items. So here next to it, you can see that all of the URLs are neatly ordered and ready to go. So now that would be the first generate script step and the generate voice step. And after that, we just need to overlay that voice on top of that green image file that we talked about, and that'll create 5 green screen clips with audio. So to do that, we use another loop node, and this is the node that does that. And here we actually start using the Nocode Architects Toolkit. In this case, you would have to use the URL that you got from your Google Cloud project, and you would also have to use the Compose endpoint. Here where it says FFmpeg, which is the video editing tool we're going to use, the endpoint is called Compose. So that's exactly what we need right now. So then make sure that you have that endpoint, and then you have to connect your account. In my case, I chose header auth, and I recommend you to do the same. But then for the actual body to send is this JSON right here. And I know that this might look a little bit intimidating, but I actually made this whole JSON that's working with ChatGPT. So you just want to go to this GPT called NTA Toolkit API GPT, and then just ask it whatever you want the JSON to be. In my case, I told it that I'm using the FFmpeg endpoint to overlay some audio on an image, and to make this into a video the length of the audio. So then it just gave me this JSON right here, which is the exact same one that I used. The only difference is that I removed this webhook URL so you can get an instant response. But after that, it even gives you where to put the image URL. So here it goes with the first URL and where to input your audio. In this case, it's the second URL. So I just did that right here and right here. And yes, it simply worked. And if it doesn't work straight out of the box for you, then you can just keep asking and giving out the error messages you get and so on. But then once this runs, you'll get the video URL. And it's this one right here.
At least Bezos and Lauren are using 80% local vendors.
So yes, we just added the audio on the video, and the length is the total audio length. So that's exactly what we wanted, and that would be step 3. So after that, we then just have to overlay the image on top of that new video. And in this case, we also want it to be animated for the slide in and the slide out. So for that, again, we just used another FFmpeg node, but of course in this case with some different JSON. So here again, you can just ask ChatGPT to give you whatever you want. So in this case, I just needed to input that generated video URL that we just got, which is this one right here. Then I had to map in the actual character image URL, which in this case came from the set data node. And then for the slide in and out animation, we used this logic. And the only thing you would have to change right here are these bits. So for the duration, you can just map it from here, which is this one. And in this case, it'll just map it in. But for the animation to work, you then also have to subtract it 0.3. So that's it. And then for the next expression, and you just copy and paste that same expression, and that would be it. The only issues you might have is if your character is too fat or too wide. So in cases like this, the slide in and slide out animation might not go all the way through. But if that happens, you can just tell ChatGPT that and it'll change the whole logic. So yes, that's it for this add character overlay. Oh, and also I almost forgot, for all of the no-code architects toolkit nodes, I'll be sharing the JSON in the description, so you'll just be able to copy and paste all of these things. But anyways, when you run this whole node, then it'll give you the same video as from before, but now with the character overlay.
At least Bezos and Lauren are a piece of tiramisu.
And that's the slide out animation. So now once the loop generates 5 of the clips like this, then we just save it into this set node. And this is just to make everything neater, so you can see that the first script of this character is right here, the second script is right here, and so on. So yes, that would be the initial part to create the video for character 1. And then we just do the same but for character 2. So after that, we then just merge all of the final clips. We don't merge them in the video, but we just merge them in the items. So the first item will be for the first dialogue, the second item for the second dialogue, and so on. And then we just use a code node to order everything up into an actual conversation list. So again, I'll be leaving this code in the description, but essentially the first character will start talking, then the second character will respond, and then the first character again will respond, and so on for all of the conversation. And next off, just because they're in separate items, then we just aggregate them into one single item. And this is because we later have to join them, so that's why they're joined in an item. And then for the final step, again, we just store it in a simple set node. Then that would be everything for the fourth part of the second step. So now we can move on to actually pick the background song. So here we just go to the last branch right here, and we use the same logic as to pick the random background video. So first we just get all of the rows where we have the music, and it'll just output the row number with its URL. And then we use the code node to actually pick a random song. And the code is the exact same one we used before, but now of course with a different Google Sheet column name. And in this case for the output, it selected the third row as the picked song. So once we have that, then we can just store it into another set node right here, just like this one, very simple, just to organize everything. And that would be the initial stage where we have the background video, the conversation green screen clips, and the picked song. So now let's check that off our guide, and to continue, we then need to proceed with overlaying everything together. So first we merge all of the individual little clips into one big one, and then we overlay that big one on top of this background video. And then we just overlay the music. So that's a step 4, and let's see how we did it in N8N. So first, since we're receiving 3 separate items, we actually need to merge all of these items into a single item. So that's what we did with the merge node using the combine mode and the combine by position. So now as you can see, we have one item with the background, the clips, and the music URL. So next, then we just use another no-code architects toolkit node with the compose endpoint, so for the FFmpeg. And in this case, we use this JSON right here. So first, we just map in the selected video game background, so it's this one right here. And then we map in all of the individual clips. Remember that it was 5 dialogues per character, so in total we have 10 dialogues. So we have the 10 videos right here. So we just map in the first one here, then the second one after that, and so on until the last one. And then you just need to map in the picked music URL, which comes from here. So just map it right here. And then for the last mapping, you just have to put in your actual user. And this will be for the watermarks, so you can even change the size, the color, the font, etc. But you have to get it from the set data node. So it's right here, and just map it right there. And now again, this will be available in the descriptions for you to just copy and paste. So then, once we run all of this, we would get this video URL. And as you can see, everything is added correctly. The watermark, the background video, the character with the audio. So everything is looking really, really good. And now that will be everything for step 4. So then we just need to add the image overlays and the captions. So let's go ahead and do just that. So the first thing we do is to transform this semifinal video to MP3 to get the transcription. So again, here we're using the Nocode Architects toolkit, but in this case we're using this endpoint to simply convert it to MP3. So here the JSON is really simple. You just input the media URL, which is from the last node. So just drag and drop that video. Then you can name the ID whatever you want, and you can leave the bitrate as 192 kilobytes. And finally, once you run this, then it'll just give you this MP3 URL.
Did you hear about Jeff Bezos having his wedding in Venice?
And the reason we converted that to MP3 is because we also want to get the transcription. And not just the transcription like all of the text, but the actual timestamps of every word. So again, here we're using the NCA toolkit, but now with this transcribe endpoint. And the same as before, the JSON is very simple. So first you just need to map in that MP3 file right here, and then set the task as transcribe and to include the SRT. So set this part as true, and then set the words per line to 1 to get the maximum precision. And I almost forgot, but yes, like all of the NCA toolkit JSONs, I'll be leaving all of these in the description, so just for your knowledge again. But once you execute this node, then you'll get the whole SRT transcription right here. As you can see, for each word we have the starting time and the end time. So that's awesome, and now we need to feed that whole SRT into OpenAI. And the main goal here is to get 4 subtopics, because for each subtopic we'll get the image, which will later overlay. So now let's overview the prompt so you can see what exactly it does. First, I just tell it that it'll read an SRT file containing a transcript of a conversation, and then I just map in the SRT right here. So then I specify its task, which is to identify 4 general subtopics discussed in the script, and that for each subtopic to select 1 representative word. So for example, if it's talking about cake, then it'll select the subtopic as cake, but we also need when that specific word was said in the script. So for each chosen subtopic or word, it'll find its timestamp in seconds in the SRT file, because right here we have the starting time and the end time, but it'll also add a 3-second buffer. So for example, if the word starts at second 5, then the actual image will appear from second 4 until second 7. And this is great because it matches with your eyes and ears, so it doesn't feel like there's a delay. But then I tell it to output a list of 4 objects, which will be the word with its timestamp, and in this case to be ordered in chronological order. And then for the final step, I just tell it that there will be no overlaying of timestamps because we don't want an image to overlay another image. But that's pretty much it. Then I just give it some final instructions for precision. And just like last time, I tell it to set its response as JSON format. And I also give it an example output so we can have some guidance. So as you can see, this list is named subtopics, and for each word, it has its timestamp. And as you can see, for each word, it has its own timestamp with the 3-second buffer. So that's all right here. So once you click on execute, you'll get a list that looks something like this. So the word with the timestamp for each of the 4 words. And then since all of these objects are just in one item, then we actually have to split them with this split out node. So now we will have these in 4 different items. And after that, we then just simply split these branches into images and timestamps. And the reason for this is because we gotta use the Pexels API to find the images. And in this case, remember that the Pexels API is completely free, and the way you can search for images is by using this URL. So just replace each of the word you want to search for with this expression. So just map this word right here. And then that's it. So if you execute this node, you'll be able to see 1 image for each of the photos. So this one is the image in different sizes for the first word. Then this is the second one, third one, and the 4th one. And in this case, since it provides us with different sizes, then we just chose to pick this one, which is in the landscape format. So now once we have all of this, then we can just set all of these images in a set node, specifically the landscape one. So just map the landscape here, and then you'll get all of the 4 images in different items. So then now we just leave this here in the meantime, and then for the timestamps, we again set all of these in a set node, and it'll go from looking something like this. So 4 items with 2 different columns into 4 items with just 1 column for the timestamps. So then after that, we just merge all of these 8 items into 4 items. So now we would finally have the exact image URL with the dedicated timestamps of when to overlay it. So now to actually overlay everything, we just aggregate it into one item. And after that, then you can actually just feed it into your Nocode Architects Toolkit FFmpeg endpoint. But in my case, just for the sake of it, I set up all of the images and timestamps in a set node. But then now in the overlay images step, we're using this JSON right here. So first for the file URL, you actually have to map in the video we have until now. So that one is right here when we overlaid everything. So it's this one right here. So just map this file URL right here. And then after that, you just map in all of your 4 images. So just map the first one with the first URL, the second one with the second URL, and so on. And then do the same, but now for the timestamps. So drag the timestamps of the first image right here. Then for the second image right here, and so on. And as you can see, these steps will look something like this. So since they're separated in commas, then they're properly formatted. And that's just how we wanted it to look. So then once you run this whole node, then all of the images would get overlaid. So as you can see right here, it's talking about the wedding cake. So now it overlaid that cake image. So that's working perfectly for all of the 4 images. And that would be this 5th step completed. And now onto the last step, which is to add the captions. In this case, we don't have to use some crazy logic because the Nocode Architects Toolkit already comes with a captions endpoint. So as you can see here in the URL, you have this caption endpoint. And for the JSON, it's again super simple. So for the video URL, you just map in the URL of the video that came in from the overlay images step and put it right here. And then you simply just have to select the settings for the captions. For example, the line color, the word color, how many words per line, if it's all capitals, the font size, if it's bold, the font family, and so on. But the most important thing you have to pick here is the actual style, which is highlight, because this will change the color of whatever word the character is speaking. So that's very important to keep your video engaging. But then to actually set the position, you can just set an X and a Y value. And then for this replace bit, well, it's basically for words that are captioned incorrectly. For example, in my first test, which I made the characters talk about N8N, the captions actually came out like this or like this. So for that, you can just use this find and replace feature. So here in the find, just put it how it writes it, and in the replace, just put it how you wanted it to write. So be sure to change this depending on whatever content you're trying to make. But finally, once you run this node, you'll get the final video that's ready to post everywhere. So boom, I just muted it, but you can see that the captions are right here. You can also tell that there's no more than 4 words per line and that it highlights it appropriately and is really accurate to the voice. So that would be the final step to add the captions, and that would be everything for your video. Now the last steps in this workflow will be to update the status in the Google Sheet. So here you can just change the status from video generating to video generated, so it'll look something like this. And then you can also just update the video column. So for the generated video, you just put the video URL which came from this add captions step. So just map that in right here. So now that final video will be shown right there. And now you'll be able to automate this type of fun videos. Remember that if you want this exact template for you to just plug and play, then it'll be available in our AI agent and automation library. I'll upload it as soon as I finish this video. But thank you for watching. If you liked this video, feel free to check out my past videos and also subscribe if you don't want to miss on any of my future projects. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for more than 3,500 subscriptions. I really appreciate all of the support that I'm getting. So that's it. I'll see you in the next video.